These are some of the athletes who ended their careers without any applause or goodbye ceremonies. Let's start with Oscar Pistorius. The South African had his legs amputated below the knees when he was only 11 years old because of a congenital defect. Despite this incredible hardship, Oscar became known as the fastest man with no legs, and ended up winning 6 Paralympic gold medals. His first controversy was over the mechanics of his impressive prosthetic running blades. People thought that the clever design of these running blades gave Oscar an unfair advantage in his races. In November 2007, Oscar was invited to be tested at the German Sports University of Cologne, with an employee of the sports governing body World Athletics being in attendance as well. After 2 days, they found that Oscar's running blades reduced his energy expenditure by 25% more than the other athletes. This meant that it was actually easier for Oscar to sprint than it would be for an Olympic runner. Due to the study's findings, World Athletics actually banned Oscar from competing against able-bodied athletes. However, this decision was successfully appealed by Oscar at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, where they concluded that the study only tested fully sprinting in a straight 400-meter line, unlike a real event. Oscar went on to win 3 gold medals at the 2008 Beijing Paralympics. 4 years later, he won 2 gold medals at the 2012 London Paralympics, but on Valentine's Day 2013, he shot and killed his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp. According to Oscar, the couple was sleeping in his house when Riva got out of bed to use the bathroom. Oscar claims that he got out of bed without his prosthetic legs to investigate the noise, believing that someone had actually broken into his home. He went to the bathroom on his stumps and fired 4 shots through the closed door. People were stunned when Oscar decided to take the stand in court and recount the events. Although nobody was allowed to film him testifying, you can hear him recounting the events and sobbing uncontrollably.
And I sat over Riva and I cried. I don't know how long I was there for. She wasn't breathing.
And when shown a picture of Riva's body, he started vomiting and required a bucket. He was also publicly embarrassed when he was required to remove the prosthesis so that the court could see what he was like during the shooting. The neighbors allegedly heard loud arguing earlier that night despite their house being about 170 meters away. South Africa is one of the most dangerous countries in the world, but those who can afford it, like Pistorius, often live in gated communities with security. People wondered why Oscar wouldn't be aware if his girlfriend was next to him in bed. None of the lights in the bedroom were turned on at the time, but investigators said that your visibility typically improves about 30% in the dark, and he could have also put his hands on her side of the bed to check if she was there. Before she was shot that night, she gave Oscar a Valentine's card in which she had written, "I think today is a good day to tell you that I love you." Pistorius was charged with culpable homicide and was released from prison in January 2024, but some believe he should have served longer. An athlete that was actually explicitly banned from sports, unlike Oscar, was Daniel Kollerer. Daniel was a pretty decent tennis player from Austria, who turned pro in 2002. The deepest that he ever went into a Grand Slam was the 2009 US Open, when he made it to the 3rd round. And over his career, he won an impressive $757,000 in prize money. His highest ranking in men's singles tennis was number 55 in the world. 2009 was the peak of his career, but things took a turn for the worse in 2010. Daniel was accused of racism by Brazilian tennis player Julio Silva, who filed charges against him when he apparently called him a monkey and told him to go back to the jungle, whilst imitating the movements of a monkey. He also had a massive drama with another opponent when Stefan Kubek was disqualified from an Austrian league match after grabbing Daniel by the throat. Stefan said that Daniel had insulted him during the match and said, "I'm man enough not to let myself be insulted, especially not by him." Some opponents refused to shake hands with Daniel, and when Federico Luzzi accepted a handshake, he didn't realize that Daniel had spat on his own hand right before. "I don't care what others say about me. If I have to change, I'll do it for me, not to please others." His coach was also quoted saying that as soon as he sets foot on the court, Danny acts like he's fighting for his life. But neither his coach or the psychologist that Daniel was seeing could manage to change his behavior. In 2010, before his career took a nosedive, Daniel lost his mother to cancer. After losing his mother, spectators noticed that he no longer gave much effort on the court. When he lost in the first round of Roland Garros, he mentioned his unhappiness to some of the Austrian fans. "You can't imagine how much pain I'm in." Back in 2006, Daniel was fined and suspended by the ATP for 6 months for bad behavior, and in 2011, Daniel was banned for life when he was caught match fixing, which landed him a massive $100,000 fine. The ban was upheld by the Court of Arbitration for Sport in March 2012, but the fine was waived since Daniel didn't even benefit financially from any of the match fixing that he did. So he was pretty much banned for life for match fixing, but never even made money from doing it apparently. In an honest interview, Daniel says that hundreds of players get approached at tournaments and get offered tens of thousands of dollars to lose on purpose.
In Chennai, they offered me 50,000. In Paris, they offered me double money. I mean, they approached for sure, I don't know, hundred of players, to lose matches on purpose.
In 2011, when he was banned, he was only 27 years old, which means he could have still had a decent career if not for his terrible behavior. Unlike Daniel Cholera, this athlete was banned for outright physical violence. Tonya Harding, originally from Oregon, was at one time a figure skater and boxer. She was actually the subject of the movie I, Tonya, where she was played by Margot Robbie. Tonya became only the second woman in history to ever perform a triple axel in 1991.
And the question is whether 3 moves into the program, she will do a triple axel. First, a triple Lutz. And now the question is whether she will become the first American to attempt and complete a triple axel jump. We will know that here, whether she tries it or not. Good girl! Oh, isn't that great?
Tonya became the center of a massive controversy when fellow figure skater Nancy Kerrigan was struck on the lower right thigh with a baton after practicing skating on an ice rink. The attack was planned by Tonya's husband Jeff Gillooly, who hired the assailant Shane Stant to attack Nancy. Jeff claimed that Tonya was involved in the attack and knew it was going to happen, but Tonya initially denied any involvement whatsoever, but accepted a plea agreement admitting to covering up the attack after the fact. The whole attack was to prevent Kerrigan from taking part in the 1994 Figure Skating Championships and the Winter Olympics. Nancy being out for the Figure Skating Championships made it easy for Tonya to win it that year in January, with the Winter Olympics just around the corner in February. Nancy made a recovery just in time for the Winter Olympics and represented the US along with Tonya. When watching the famous video just before and after Nancy gets attacked, it becomes more haunting when you realize that the assailant Shane Stant was actually standing about 1.5 feet behind the camera crew and waited for them to stop filming before he followed Nancy behind the curtain. He approached her from behind, extended a telescopic baton, struck her lower right thigh, and escaped from the arena by smashing through a locked glass door.
Why?
The attack severely bruised her knee and quadriceps tendon, and she was lucky to be back in action at the Olympics the following month. Tonya was hit with 3 years of supervised probation and a $100,000 fine, 500 hours of community service, forced to resign from the US Figure Skating Association, forced to donate $50,000 to the Special Olympics Oregon charity, and forced to pay $10,000 of reimbursement to the county for legal expenses. Tonya knew all along about her husband's plans but never pushed back against it, and pleaded guilty to hindering the prosecution by not telling anyone who did it, even though she knew all along that it was her husband and his associates.
Nancy, I want to apologize again for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, around the wrong people. If I would have known anything, you know, in the beginning, I would have done anything I could to stop it. Anything. I mean, I would have dropped everything I had in my whole life to do that. I mean, I say that from the bottom of my heart. I really do. I really do.
Tonya was eventually banned explicitly for life. One athlete that should probably be in prison right now is Matt Petgrave. On October 28, 2023, with 8,000 spectators in the crowd, the Nottingham Panthers faced the Sheffield Steelers in the Elite Ice Hockey League. Matt Petgrave was Canadian but played for the Sheffield Steelers at the time. On the other team was Adam Johnson, who was American. 35 minutes into the game, Matt Petgrave moves towards Adam Johnson and launches his skate blade right into Adam Johnson's neck. It's hard to justify this in any way because it's visibly intentional, and Petgrave had a reputation for being a particularly nasty player. Johnson starts to skate over to the team bench before collapsing on the ice and dying. As paramedics tended to the injury, the players formed a ring around the scene to prevent the cameras and spectators from seeing the horrific scene. He was 29 at the time of his death, but what's really shocking is how some people responded to the incident. Johnson's own teammate says that Petgrave's actions were unintentional and anyone suggesting otherwise is mistaken. Johnson's own team even stated on their website that his death was a result of a freak accident. If you watch the video, I bet you'll find it hard to believe that it was an accident. Petgrave received a standing ovation at his team's first home game since he killed Adam Johnson, although he still hasn't played a match after the incident, and he's not allowed to leave the Nottingham area since the investigation is still pending while he's out on bail. Hockey players did a full analysis of the incident, and all of them seem to think the leg movement from Petgrave was intentional.
You can tell Petgrave right here took a bad angle. You can tell he overextended. Petgrave saw that the defenseman was committing his players here. It's going to be a great play, because if this guy doesn't commit the scum of the earth play, he's going to have a wide open lane to this net here. As Johnson's cutting across, sticks his fucking leg out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Watch this. And he sticks his leg out. Look at him lifting his leg up. He is not a good human. He's a dirty ass hockey player. I pray to God that he goes to jail. He should never step on the ice again. Scum of the earth human being.
Up next is a guy with the same name as the victim that we just saw. Adam Johnson was a professional football player who played as a winger for the England national team and played for Middlesbrough, Manchester City and then Sunderland before his life turned into a flaming mess. He was immediately suspended by his club Sunderland on the 2nd of March 2015 after getting arrested on the suspicion of having activity with a 15-year-old girl. Johnson shockingly returned to the pitch only 2 matches later, and despite him being charged with 3 offences, he continued to be selected for the team. In May 2015, he confessed to the club that he had indeed kissed the girl in question and sent her explicit images. Even after telling this to the club, Johnson played the first match of the new season but was then injured for 2 months. Even though he was first arrested in March 2015, his last game for Sunderland wasn't until February 2016, where he scored against Liverpool in a 2-2 draw. 5 days later, his contract was terminated after he pleaded guilty in court. Johnson was removed from FIFA 16, but fans were wondering why the hell he was still playing in the team even after his arrest and his confession to the club. It was revealed that he had made the confession to the club's chief executive Margaret Byrne in May 2015. She would later resign after he pled guilty, regretting her serious mistake, and said that she hadn't made the club aware of his admission. Johnson's daughter was actually born the month after he committed the offences with a 15-year-old girl. During his trial, his girlfriend announced that they were separated due to Johnson having confessed to infidelity with other women. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison and forced to pay £50,000 in legal fees. To make things worse, police even found animal porn on his computer. He was released in 2019 after only serving half of his sentence. He somehow got back with his girlfriend after his release, and they had a second child in 2021.
How long did you got 6 years, didn't you? Yeah. And you never even a bird. No, you never even it's not like you raped her up like that. No, I wish did for 6 years.
The last one on the list is probably the most famous case. Lance Armstrong was a wildly successful cyclist until his career came to a halt when he was exposed for steroid use. Back in the day when he was only 25, he was actually diagnosed with stage 3 testicular cancer. When his urologist was later asked what his survival chances were, he said almost none. We told Lance initially 20 to 50% chance, mainly to give him hope. But with the kind of cancer he had, with the x-rays, the blood tests, almost no hope. Lance had a testicle removed the day after being diagnosed, but the cancer had already spread to his lymph nodes, lungs, brain, and abdomen. He was found to have brain lesions which contained extensive necrosis, which was surgically removed. Armstrong miraculously made it through the chemotherapy and multiple surgeries, and from his diagnosis to getting back to cycling was only about 3 months. 3 years later in 1999, Lance would go on to win the Tour de France a record 7 consecutive times until 2005. Lance would later admit that his use of performance-enhancing drugs began as early as 1995, about a year before the cancer diagnosis. Although he faced many accusations of doping throughout his career, he denied all of the rumors until January 2013, when he admitted some of his cheating to Oprah.
Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
Yes or no? Was one of those banned substances EPO?
Yes.
Did you ever blood dope or use blood transfusions to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes.
Did you ever use any other banned substances like testosterone, cortisone, or human growth hormone?
Yes.
Yes or no? In all 7 of your Tour de France victories, did you ever take banned substances or blood dope?
Yes.
This was because the United States Anti-Doping Agency formally charged him in October 2012 based on some blood samples and testimony from witnesses such as his former teammates. Armstrong didn't want to appeal the charges because he said it wouldn't be worth the toll to his family. He was stripped of all of his achievements from August 1998 onwards, including the record 7 Tour de France titles. He was also formally banned from all sports. He reportedly lost $75 million of sponsorship income when all of his sponsors dropped him after the USADA report. Just a couple of years after this, Armstrong said that if it were 1995, he would probably do it again.
When it comes to the doping, would you do it again?
If I was racing in 2015, no, I wouldn't do it again. Because I don't think you have to do it again. If you take me back to 1995, when it was completely and totally pervasive, I'd probably do it again.